Pope Francis, speaking aboard his plane as he returned from South Korea, urged the international community to respond to the crisis in Iraq. But he said that no single country should decide how to intervene.
Where there is an unjust aggression, I can only say that it is licit to stop the unjust aggressor. I underscore the verb to stop. I'm not saying bombing or making war, but stopping him.
Una sola nazione.
One single nation cannot judge how he is to be stopped.
While global crises swirl around us, there is perhaps an element of the various wars and conflicts that is being sadly and all too often missed. The element of religion, and how far too many of these so-called freedom fighters are little more than killers carrying the banner of religious cleansing. This is not the first time in our history we have seen such appalling instances, and sorry to say it won't be the last. What is happening to one religion has come to the fore after comments from their spiritual leader, and has some people wondering if this means a new course of action in calling the faithful to arms. It's a pleasure to welcome back to MidPoint the president of the Catholic League for Religious and Civil Rights, Bill Donohue. Bill, good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Ed.
Bill, did this catch the faithful and the people around the world, Catholics, a little bit by shock when the Pope made his comments?
Yes, and I'll tell you why, because certainly in my lifetime, I've never seen anything like it. The first instinct of the Catholic Church, obviously, is toward peace, diplomacy, try to work it out in a nonviolent way. That's what we're used to. On the other hand, we do have a just war doctrine from St. Augustine going back centuries, so that there are certain specific criteria that the Catholic Church has laid out where war is okay. We are not the Amish. We are not the Quakers. We are not a pacifistic religion. We understand that there are certain times when only force can bring about peace. World War II would be an example, and now we have it today.
Let's look at that just war theory that you talk about. Explain that a little more in depth.
Well, it means that all other avenues must be exhausted before you resort to force. Every single method should be tried in a nonviolent way. The response has to be proportionate. It cannot be disproportionate. I guess that's what the Holy Father was saying when he says no one nation. He would prefer the international community to come together because maybe that might temper any one nation from getting too excitable and taking advantage of the situation. It also must be that you do everything you can to maximize the protection of the innocents. We know that there will be some collateral damage, including the loss of human lives in war, but everything has to be done to make sure that that is limited as best we can. So there are many steps that can be taken. But what the difference between ISIS or ISIL and previous examples of terrorism that we've seen over the last decade, several decades, is that this is not contained. This is not in a nation, one nation state. We know the persecutions going against Christians in Northern Africa, in Korea, and China. But no one really thinks that these people are going to bring their terrorism to some other nation. Maybe they would if they could, but they're not going to. ISIL's an entirely different animal. They have pledged to say that we're going to see the flag of Muhammad in the White House, that they're going to bring the bloodshed here. I've sat out my window in New York City and saw the Twin Towers go down. I'm a veteran of the United States Air Force. I don't want to see it happen again. These people are the most savage barbarians I have ever seen in my entire life, and absent force, nothing's going to stop them.
With what you just said then, is it not proper that the Pope came out and said that? Because we are all living in much more fear than we have been in recent years. So as the spiritual leader here, perhaps he does need to push the followers forward a little bit and say, wait a minute, we're all about peace, we don't want war, but this has got to be done. It actually might have been a good thing for Catholics to hear.
Well, I think you phrased it very well, Ed. Let me just say this. You know, the Pope is going to get the information from Catholics on the ground. I'm talking about the Chaldean Patriarch. I'm talking about the Iraqi, the Papal Nuncio to Iraq. I'm talking about Tomasi, who's the permanent observer to the UN of the Holy See. These are men who have been there. They've seen what's going on. Children being beheaded, women being raped, people being buried alive, Christians told, die or convert. You have until midnight to make up your mind. And then we have something which is reminiscent of Nazi Germany, where Jews had the Nazi insignia placed on them. They're putting the word N on certain homes. The word N means Nazarene. That's so that these terrorists know which are the Christian homes and which are the Muslims' homes, and so we're going to just destroy the Christian homes. And by the way, I want to emphasize this too. Not all Muslim homes. These barbarians are killing all Muslims who don't agree with them. So that's why I think the Pope has realized we're at a tipping point. If we don't act now, we're all going to be dead. Because these people will stop at nothing.
To that tipping point, you mentioned Silvano Tomasi. He is the United Nations in Geneva, the Vatican's ambassador there. His quote, maybe military action is necessary at this moment. He didn't actually stop. He went right to military action. So perhaps it is indeed something that people need to understand. The only way to actually stop what is true religious persecution here is sometimes you got to answer it with the gun, Bill.
Well, we're not going to do this with pea shooters, all right? We're not going to do this with pop guns. The only thing that can stop these people is war. I hate to say it, but that's the only thing that will stop them. We've already seen there's been a lessening of the loss of human life, innocent human life, in the past week, precisely because we have been able to thwart them. Look, it's not just the Pope. It's Obama as well. His natural step is somewhat similar to the Pope. He wants peace, too. But he's realized that this is something Hegel has said, he's never seen anything like it in his life. David Cameron from England. We know that the Germans, because of their experience back in the 1930s and 40s, they don't want to get involved in any war. They have now stepped up and said we have to do something. The French. I mean, you've got what happened a week ago today was very important, Ed. August the 15th, the United Nations and the Security Council unanimously passed. Russia was a bit recalcitrant, but they went along with it. A call for Chapter 7 of the UN Charter to be invoked. That means military sanctions. That means military force has been authorized. Again, this is not just the Pope. The UN, President Obama and others normally don't want to get involved in saying the only way you can end this violence is to stop them with arms. But that's what they're saying, and I happen to agree with them.
Bill, are we looking at a changing papacy now when you consider what's happening and certainly the rise of religious persecution, certainly Christians and the Yazidis as well, but perhaps the papacy needs to change to become more part of the modern world where, quite frankly, it is a world that is filled with weapons, terrorists, people who are willing to behead anybody at the drop of a dime. So you have to make people realize we can't always be about peace, and we have to try to bring the current world into what is at times seen as a stagnant religion.
I think that's right. I think there's 151 nations in the world, the Pew Center has said, where Christians are being persecuted. So it's not just in the Middle East. Something like three quarters of the worst atrocities are taking place in Muslim-majority nations. You've even got people like the Saudis scared to death off of this, and they have actually funded terrorism in the past. We know that. They crush civil liberties at home. Why are they afraid of ISIL? It'd almost be like the mafia saying, listen, we don't care about breaking the law, but we don't like this gang over here because they're out of control. ISIL found al-Qaeda to be too tame. If you find al-Qaeda to be too tame, now we know what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the most incredible barbarians and savages the world has ever seen, or certainly has long seen since at least Nazi Germany.
I got about 90 seconds here. Do you think, Bill, that there are people out there, certain countries, that actually fear a call to arms by the Pope here, knowing full well what he can generate and the people that he reaches and how he may be able to regenerate these people to understand what's happening around them and take their own action?
They shouldn't have any fear. The Pope's words were far more measured than Tomasi and some of these others. He was simply saying, first of all, he wants an international community response. He also wants it to be limited. No, he certainly does not want to be interpreted as giving the green light. Hey, go U.S. or Britain or the NATO and go out there and just bomb them to smithereens. That is not the Catholic Church's way, and that would be a misrepresentation of Pope Francis. He is saying that the crisis is so grave that he understands that in this instance here, force is necessary at least to try and thwart this thing from getting any further. But again, I stress, I saw those Twin Towers go down outside my office in New York City. I don't want to watch this again.
20 seconds left here, Bill. Do you get the reaction from a lot of people that they're rather pleased with what the Pope said?
Yes, I've been speaking to lots of people, not all of whom are Catholic, and they're very happy with it. I'm speaking to people who typically have said, I don't want to have anything to do with the Middle East again, and no one's asking us to go in there and do nation building. That's a different task altogether. I have yet to meet a person who says, you know what, I think we ought to just simply walk away from this thing, let them all kill each other. Now, I'm sure there are some people out there like that, but I certainly haven't met them.
Bill, it is always a pleasure to have you on the show, my friend. Please be well. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much, Ed.
All right, thanks so much. Later on this hour, one would be wise to look around the world and see what's coming our way before deciding all is economically swell with America. And after the break, we open up the arena to dig deeper into the words and actions of not only the Pope, but others preparing to fight what could be deemed another global holy war. It's all right here on MidPoint.